Hey, this is Fred Ottman, Tugboat Typhoon, the Shockmaster, the B-A-double-D, Big Steel Man. And the card is subject to change. Watch it.
Welcome back to the show!
Welcome back to the show!
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong, Nick Bull.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan, for the fan. Of course, I'm your host, Never Wrong, Nick Bull. So happy you have joined us. So happy you found us. And hope you like the next hour or so you're going to spend here with us. This is episode 203 of the Card Subject to Change podcast. Of course, we are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, and colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo. I would be remiss, of course, if I did not mention my tag team partner could not do this alone. He is one half of the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions. We are also co-host of the Card Subject to Change podcast. He is also my tag team partner, co-host, and fellow wrestling fan. The one, the only, the Wizard CZ Wiz. How are you doing, bud?
Man, I am doing good. I'm a little on the tired side, and I don't know why, but I feel good. I feel good.
You don't know why? I'll break it to you. It's a holiday weekend.
That's fair.
When holiday weekends happen, you lose track of days. Like, I, for a second, like 3 hours ago, kind of shook my head and had to realize, like, oh, I got to go back to work tomorrow. Like, oh, that's it. It's Sunday. Okay. All right. Okay. It's, we've been sitting around celebrating here for the last few days. It's been hot, and hope everybody's been having a safe and happy 4th celebration and managing the heat out there. But we are here, of course, to talk about wrestling. So you're probably tired because of the long weekend.
Didn't feel like it, though. It went by too fast.
We got plenty in the tank. I can't wait to meet our guest, CZ, and start talking wrestling.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have this young lady on. I've been talking with her for a while. She's been on shows with me like the Joe Monroe Show or the No Cell Roundtable, whichever you prefer. She is one of the best referees on the independent scene. Let's welcome in one Jaina Pryde. Jaina, welcome.
Oh, goodness. Thanks for putting pressure on me right away. One of the best.
No. Jaina, he's really good at that, putting pressure on you.
Yeah. No,
I feel it all the time. He's kind of a tyrant in that regard. No, I'm just kidding. He's not.
You're like my dad in the 3rd grade. Put that pressure on me, and I'm just going to let you down.
No. Welcome to the show. We're so glad that you're here. I know CZ has talked to you before. I have not, and I'm happy that you're here with us on the show. Jaina, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask every other guest we have here for the first time. Why pro wrestling? What was it about pro wrestling that got you and lured you in?
I think as a fan, it's the fact that it's like one of the only forms of entertainment that you get to go into and, pay your $20, pay your, $50, whatever, depending on where you're sitting, and be a part of the show. Like, you don't just go in there and sit down like you're at a movie theater and just like, oh, this was nice, I hope it wins an award. No, you're in there, you bring your signs, you're yelling, the wrestlers sometimes are interacting with you, and you personally, when you go to a play, Alexander Hamilton up on stage isn't going to stop mid-song and say, and I appreciate you as well. So as a fan, that's why I got into it. As a ref and formerly as a wrestler, like, it was one of those things where I wanted to be a part of bringing that experience to everybody else. And I also have that little performer in me that's like, look at me. And this helps to satiate that.
Without a doubt. What was, so you talked about what brought you in as a fan. Is there any particular moment or memory that you had that really got you excited for the business?
There are two very formative memories that I have as a fan, which was growing up. Ultimate Warrior was doing a program with The Undertaker. And I was watching whatever the show was that was on USA on Saturday mornings that WWF had back in the day. And the Undertaker had like driven nails into the coffin that the Ultimate Warrior was in. And they're just selling it like, oh my God, he can't breathe. He can't breathe. Someone get him out of there. And then it went to commercial. And I am in tears. I am bawling. I'm like, get the Ultimate Warrior out of there. Because I didn't know how much of a trash human he was. And I was like, help, help, help. My mom comes running down the stairs. What's wrong? She finds out. And she turns it off and says, you're not allowed to watch that crap anymore.
Ooh.
Fast forward 5 years later, 6 years somewhere in there, and my dad and I are at our cabin out in the woods, and miraculously had one of those direct TV satellites. It happened to get all the papers. It's weird. I don't know how that happened. It must have been totally legal. And flipping through the channels, and Survivor Series 9 and I wasn't in wrestling at this time. My friends liked talking about wrestling, but I didn't really know anything about it. And I just remember being enamored with storytelling that went into that tournament. And it's one of those things that I love about tournament shows to this day is you get an opportunity to tell. It's like a bottle episode of a serial TV show. You get to tell an entire story in this one show and help and let people go along for the ride. So you got the story of the whole show and then the little stories of the individual matches nested into it. And for a fan, I started watching that and just thought, wow, okay, this actually is cool. It's not like I was kind of hyping myself to believe that, oh, what's that wrestling crap?
What was your favorite match off that show?
I don't even know. For me, it was more the spectacle, because at the time I didn't really have any kind of appreciation for wrestling. And to this day, it's really more the spectacle. So when Vince McMahon came out and was introducing Mankind's first opponent, and he's hyping him up, and I'm like, oh my God, who is this guy? I mean, I know enough from the video packages to know that this Mankind guy must be pretty good. And then Gilbert comes out, or it was just Dwayne Gill at the time. And I'm like, what is this? This is amazing. I love this. And to this day, like, comedy wrestling is to me, that's the best form of wrestling.
For sure. I people poo-poo on it, but I think there's a place for just about anything in wrestling. And, I think people hear comedy and then they think, oh, it's not going to be a good story, or it's not. And that's not the case whatsoever. You're talking about Survivor Series Deadly Games. I love the theme song from that. It's a deadly game. Oh, the horrible theme song they had for it. Deadly game. But you're right. I do love tournament shows. They've kind of dumbed down the King of the Ring now. But before, it was all done in one night, and having it done in one night was kind of always cool because injuries always played a part. And, I always felt that the King of the Ring was a bigger deal when it was a standalone, when Bret Hart won, when Owen Hart won, even, back in those days. That's the King of the Rings. I wish they would go back to the one-night tournament. But I love tournament style wrestling like you were talking
Who
about.
is the best King of the Ring ever, and why is it Billy Gunn?
Ooh. That's king ass to you. All right. So you popped Nick. You got Nick to sing. I tried to get Nick to do WrestleMania the Opera a few months ago, and he just wouldn't do it. I think we found a replacement host, Nick. I'm sorry. I got to leave the show.
There you go. I guarantee she's probably a better singer than I am. So,
if you do go onto ultimateguitar.com where they got guitar tabs on there, so I play ukulele. And I found the lyrics for a parody
Okay.
of 12 Days of Christmas this past Yule, and it was the 12 Days of Refmas. And it's all of the every day is like one of the other things that a pro wrestling ref goes through. And so I actually tabbed it all out and like put it in Ultimate Guitar so anybody can go on there and sing it and play it now.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Ukulele, how long have you been playing?
Since like 2021. It was one of the ways that I kept myself sane during COVID.
Okay, that's fair.
Sure. What I'm gonna, the wrestling nerd in me. Do you play any wrestling themes? Can you play any wrestling theme?
I learned Randy Orton's theme at one time.
Yeah. I'm trying to mash Randy Orton's theme and the ukulele. I mean, that's awesome.
And I learned Jericho's Judas.
Okay, I'm down for that.
Ooh,
I'm down for that.
me, when I play a ukulele, I think the best thing about it, and I've always been a fan of like covers in general, but is playing something that kind of subverts the expectation of how the song is to be played. So like one of my favorite bands to play on a ukulele is NoFX, the punk band, because it's like, what the crap is this?
Oh man, I would love to hear some of that. A punk ukulele tune, that'd be epic. Jaina, I want to go back a little bit. You're talking about comedic wrestling, and a lot of people poo-poo on it, like Nick said, but I got to hear your opinion, because if someone is going to crap on comedic wrestling, I'm going to show them Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville, the greatest comedy match ever, in my opinion.
It was solid.
I mean, Mark Henry's hand baby grew up and hit Sami Zayn in the face. So
yeah. And I think a lot of people, like, we as humans tend to focus on the negative things. Like something can be 99% perfect, and then that one little 1% you're going to focus on. And so many folks from that match like focus on the issue with that mousetrap that happened. And you know what? They did their best that they could. They were doing a prop show in front of thousands and thousands of people. Carrot Top was not there to oversee the prop management of a live show like that, and they did the best they could, and it was amazing. You're absolutely right, CZ.
I always will go back and watch that if I get a chance. I love it.
No, that
very
match
much
shattered
so.
Expectations. That match it really exceeded the maybe because I had such low expectations coming in, because I kind of knew it would turn into a shit show, but it was a shit show for the right reasons. And those guys went out there and just spun a web, told the story. It was hilarious, and it went over well. Like, you can't do what they did any better in that situation, I don't think.
And I feel like WrestleMania lately has turned into a place where it's hard to do things. It's hard to try new things. You know, it used to be WrestleMania, they could come out there and really do no wrong. For God's sake, they brought Pete Rose in multiple times to just be pile driven by Kane in various ways. But now it's like, oh, we see this WrestleMania as like this sacred thing, and God forbid you put anything on but 5-star bangers, or bell to bell. It's kind of weird.
I agree. I mean, you can't have a show that is just 5 stars all across the board, in my opinion. It takes away from, you need that ebb and flow for a good show, in my opinion. It has to have those ups and downs. Otherwise, you need, how do I want to put this? You need that break every once in a while from the excitement. Otherwise, you're gonna be dead to rights by the end of the show.
Yeah. Nick, to your point, Tucker,
when you're on a roller coaster, you're not going downhill the whole time.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
When you're on a roller coaster, you're not downhill the whole time. You got to, it's an ebb and flow. And I just think, unfortunately, like the shift of the whole, like the majority of a wrestling community, they want to watch just the 5-star banger after banger, and good for them. But I am told, and comedy, there's definitely like look at this way, like Outrunners. I would label them a comedy tag team. Is that wrong, CZ, in labeling them comedy? They've kind of gotten their push, their connection with fans, because they're kind of a comedy act. But they went on to put on a serious match with FTR last night on Collision 100. Go back and watch it if you get a chance. And so, that's a role that your promoter needs filled, right? So those guys are filling it, and people get pigeonholed into that, and they shouldn't be, in my opinion.
I forget who said it. I mean, it's been multiple people over the years, but wrestling has often been compared to a 3-ring circus. And the reason there's 3 rings in the circus is because there's a little bit of everything. You don't like the clowns, maybe you like the elephants. You don't like the elephants, well, maybe you'll like the acrobats. And exactly what you're saying, you got to have that little bit of everything for everybody, as at a local level, as a small indie promoter, and at an international level, because you're never going to make everybody happy all of the time. So it's striking that balance 100%. And we were talking about before with anybody who poo-poos on comedy wrestling. One of the things that I would point out is look at R-Truth, Ron Killings, the way he's being booked again. Like, he's just show his career. Most of his career, except for the early days, was spent as a comedy act in wrestling. And people love him. He's been a mainstay for decades. And he built it on comedy wrestling. And he has the chops to be a serious wrestler, as we used to see and as we're seeing again. But comedy wrestling got him to the table again.
Big time. And it's nice to see. Yeah, I love that he's revamping himself now, and we're getting that former 2-time NWA champion back. But that he wouldn't have the career that he does without the comedic aspect.
And kudos to WWE for keeping that act going as long as they did, right? They saw, oh, hey, fans respect this, and despite their annual cuts that they do, he managed to stay off the chopping block, at least until recently. And who knows whether, was that a work? Was it a shoot when he was fired? Who knows? I don't know that we'll ever fully know, but and that's one of the other cool things with wrestling, right? Was it a work? Was it a shoot? I don't know, and I don't want to know.
Exactly. You don't want to peel back the curtain too far.
I'm going to switch up directions here, Jaina, because I gotta ask a ref question. Do you critique the refs as much as we critique the refs when we're watching like a pay-per-view or a premium live event?
I don't know if I critique as much. And I think part of that is I feel like, who am I to critique these people doing it at a high level? If anything, I'm trying to study what they're doing. And if I see something that well, why were they positioned there? Why did they break off like this? And I kind of see it as like a research opportunity almost. And I'll kind of go and ask some other people. So I think there's still a critical eye when I'm watching as a ref, but more so of almost of an inward criticality. Why did they do that? Okay. Why don't I do that? How can I be better by doing that?
Oh, sure.
That makes a lot of sense.
No, I like that.
You mentioned studying, and trying to improve. Who's your favorite ref to kind of watch and study?
So, anybody who's watched me enough in the rings and sees my facial expressions will probably know that I hold Aubrey Edwards in very high regard. Okay. And I laugh saying that because I know she gets critiqued for it. And I've gotten critiqued for it as well, but overall it seems to be working. But her and Jessica Carr are really the two biggest ones that I look to and say, okay, what are you doing? How have you gotten to where you are? And in Jessica Carr's instance also, she has undergone this huge regeneration of getting healthier and getting herself more comfortable with her body and who she is. And it's been cool watching that transformation on her part as well. because that's another thing. As refs, we tend to not think about, how we are physically. Are we training? Do we have the lung capacity? Is our cardio going to get blown up right away? How does that work? And it's a weird thing a weird line to ride, because especially as a woman, it's almost like, well, you don't want to get too fit because you're going to distract in the ring, right? But yeah, long story short, definitely Aubrey Edwards and Jessica Carr are like two of my favorites to kind of keep an eye on.
Okay. Would you ever? This is an off the wall question. I look back to my my teenage days and watching WCW and the NWO. If there were a heel organization, would you ever turn to heel and be the referee exclusively for that
Dude,
group?
I low key very, very much want to do like an evil Nick Patrick angle before I retire.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah, and I wanted to be like, because fans, they like me, and I hope that they continue to like me, because I find it's because I like to be personable. I interact, and I'm genuinely interested in talking to people, and apparently I do an okay job. So it would be awesome to like do it in a place where people are used to seeing me in a certain light, and just be like, screw somebody in that main event, and just end up joining, take off my ref shirt, and here I am. And it's been done to death, but I want to do it. I want to be the person to do it. There's two things I wanted to do in my ref career. One of which is that. The other was enter into a battle royal when I was on the outside of the ring, and immediately get eliminated. I wanted to do that whole thing, and I got to do that at a Wrestling Fans United event last year, which was chef's kiss.
That's excellent.
Jumped in the ring, was immediately eliminated by Matthias.
That's
for sure. I like that you got to scratch that one off the list. Now, how about the other one? Are you going to be able to pull that one off?
I want to, but at the same time, like, I have this weird thing in me where I don't like suggesting things that might put me over as a rep, because that's just like it's turning into more of a gray area, but it used to be a really icky area. Like, refs are wallpaper. That's it. You're there to help facilitate. You are a support role. But we see that kind of get subverted from time to time. So does it work when it does get subverted, especially at an indie level? Yeah, oftentimes it does. But I'm often not the kind of person that will try to suggest something like that. Like, great example is last night I was working a WFU show. And after the main, it was supposed to be, some shenanigans coming into the ring. And there was going to be, a post-match beatdown setting up for the next show. And I said, hey, if I happen to still be in the ring when you guys run out there, just bump me. The only reason that I was comfortable suggesting that to them is because I'm friends with them, and I can say, that's not to say that I have that closeness with them that I can be like, I'm going to suggest this, and you guys know that if you say no, I'm not going to take offense to it, and you guys know that I'm not trying to make myself the main character.
In that, guys, we've seen refs here locally that have taken a bump and the crowd is still leaving and they're laying prone outside the ring. How long is too long to be down when you take a ref bump?
If it's the main event?
Yeah.
Until somebody comes to get you.
Well, that's fair.
That's what I've always told people. I'll admit that it might be to kind of play a prank on them a little bit too. But like when I'm head reffing on a card and another ref takes a bump in the main, I'm like, you lay there until somebody comes to get you, because those are the two biggest guys in the company right now, and you're made of wet paper. So I've let somebody lay there right up until the crowd was out of there and we started taking down the ring, and then I'm like, all right, come on, I got you. And to his credit, he laid there the whole time. It's great.
I love it. I have a couple more questions, Jaina, but we're getting close to that half-hour mark. We do have to support the other parts of the network here for frequency's sake. So we've talked about it in past episodes about the Toys for Tots Fantasy Football League. I'm going to let our commercial speak for itself. We'll be right back here in just a moment.
Football season is just around the corner, and once again, For Fantasy's Sake is running its annual Toys for Tots Fantasy Football Leagues. Don't miss your chance to be crowned the best fantasy football player in the Quad Cities. The For Fantasy's Sake Toys for Tots Bowl is loaded with great prizes and even better local celebrity participants, ranging from professional athletes and news personalities to your favorite FFSQC personalities. To sign up, just visit For Frequency's Sake on Facebook or Twitter and follow the links.
What's going on? It's Mr. Billy. It's loud as hell in here, but you should be listening to Card Subject to Change.
Now, I just want to point out as we come out of that, Nick, they flashed a bunch of names up as to who the celebrities are. It may have been up a little too quick for you there, but neither of our names are on that list. And I just got word from All Ego DJ Jarvis that we are 4 people away from having a league for the Card Subject to Change. We need 4 more signups. Are you a fantasy football player, Jaina? You want to?
I was just gonna say, okay, let me get my QR scanner out.
We're Chris is pandering for fantasy openings. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think I've gotten signed up yet.
Shame on you.
I was going to do it after the 4th of July holiday. I know, shame on me.
I think.
But welcome back to Card Subject to Change, podcast by the fan, for the fan. Of course, we are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, and colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo. I'm never wrong, Nick Bull, joined by the Wizard CZ. We are chatting with Jaina Pryde, and we're just asking her a bunch of referee questions. And I want to ask her what her favorite ref bump is and what is the greatest ref bump of all time.
Card subject to change.
Perfect.
Submit.
Yay!
Oh, you can't see it, but I'm signed up. I'm signed up for the Toys for Tots Fantasy Football.
3 away.
I also just wanted, before I answer that really quick, as I was looking at the QR code, like I know you guys do the Toys for Tots thing, which is awesome. But where I come from, T for T means something totally different.
Well, that was not my call. That's from the powers that be up above. He likes to think of himself as our tribal chief, but
best ref bump of all time, I really don't know. That's a great question, though, and it's not something that I've ever put any thought into. My favorite ref bump, for me personally, was getting to take a bump onto some glass at a Ruthless Pro Wrestling show in Chicago. It was...
I got to hear about this.
So, Ruthless Pro, fantastic deathmatch company, touring all over the U.S., and was working a show for them at the historic Berwyn Eagles Club on Berwyn, Illinois. And it was the main event of a full, wall-to-wall deathmatch show. So, of course, there's like broken glass tube all over the floor on the outside, broken panes. It's a lot to pick up after a deathmatch show. And I'm one of the people on the outside during the main event, and it was Akira and Drake Younger. Akira's up on the top rope, and security was supposed to be out around the ring, and they were going to be helping Drake catch Akira off the top rope. Security wasn't there. I was. So Drake grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "You're helping catch." And me, I'm like, "Yeah, cool, no problem. I've done this before." And as Akira launches off the top rope, I remember all the glass behind me. And as he's getting closer, I think, once again, I'm made out of wet paper, and that means that I can't move. So he comes down, and I catch with Drake, and I take the bump, and it was fine. But then I had to lay in the glass for way longer than I would have liked. So I'm just like, don't move, don't move, don't move. But yeah, so I mean that's not something that many refs can say, that they took a bump onto some broken glass. So don't get me wrong, it makes me sound way more hardcore than I actually am, which is part of the reason that I like saying it. But
I want to go back.
It definitely gives you some credit.
yeah.
I want to go back before the break and just now a few minutes ago. You're talking about how the ref is kind of wallpaper, kind of background noise, but at the same time, as the referee, you're playing an integral part in the story in any match. Talk about that and how it feels as from a ref's perspective, be a part of that story that's being told.
For me, so there's a couple things that always come to mind when I think about that. One of the people who I've had the privilege of learning under has been referee TJ Bowles. And he said to me one time that being a referee is an awful lot like pizza. So if you have a pizza and you're describing the best pizza you've ever had in your life, and you're talking about the crust, and it was chewy but crispy, and it was just right. That cheese, it was melty, it had a little bit of crunchy bubble stuff on it. Don't you like that? Those pepperonis, they were curling up, doing that thing. The veggies, they were cooked but not mushy. The whole thing was great. Now, what did I not mention? The sauce. Now take that same pizza, make the sauce be a little bit runny. All of a sudden, the best pizza that you've ever had in your life has been ruined because of one thing, the sauce. A referee is an awful lot like that. When we do our job right, we're not even being mentioned when they're talking about how great that pizza was or how great that match was. But when we do our job poorly, we're all people remember. So that's one of those things where it's like it's a good reminder that just because you're not the main character doesn't mean that your job isn't just as crucial. And the way that I've always kind of seen that for myself, and part of the reason that I enjoy reffing as much as I do, is because, like, if you've ever played like a team-based RPG, like whether you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or World of Warcraft or something like that, you've got your tanks, the people that take damage, you've got your damage dealers, and then you've got your healers. And the healers are the support class that make sure that the other people can do their jobs. I've always enjoyed playing healers in World of Warcraft, and being a ref is an awful lot like being the healer out in the ring. You're the support class. You're there to be like, hey, you okay? Hey, just so you know, this guy's got to do this. Hey, you're at this many minutes. And just making sure that these people have the tools that they need and are supported in the way that they can be to put on the show of the night.
And it's a big responsibility. It's a big responsibility. It really is. And, a lot of times keeping time, people probably like, oh, that's easy. That's hard. I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world, I would assume, because not only are you trying to keep time, keep to your times, you're also trying not to interrupt or get in the way of what's going on in the ring. So it's a thankless job, and I always admire when there's a good ref around running things.
That's always appreciated. And yeah, times are without a doubt one of my Achilles heels. Like, truth, full disclosure, the two things that I work on the most because I have such a hard time is keeping track of the time. Like, if there's not a clock in the arena somewhere that I can see, and if we're not using radios where I'm getting cues, good luck. I'm going to give you the best I can. Because a lot of places are like, well, you shouldn't wear a watch either. Okay, I got that. The other one is in-ring communication. And it's besides being allergic to bumping, like, that's part of why I don't wrestle, because I can't hear as well in the ring. I've got considerable ear damage from being an idiot in high school with loud stereo systems. And for me to, like, be able to call stuff in the ring and to kind of hear that, it's tricky for me. So yeah, it's nice exposing my flaws too, I guess.
So, Jaina, one thing we like to do, being the Card Subject to Change podcast, we like to do a little fantasy booking. And this is a unique experience because usually we're talking to the wrestlers on the indie scenes. Is there a match that you would like to replace the ref in? That you wish you could have refed?
Good one.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that is a good question. I don't know. I don't know about matches in particular, but maybe shows.
Okay.
And the first thing that comes to mind is like before AEW was even a thing, like that first All Out show. The fact that it was the fans there. Like if you go back and watch that even now, like it was electric because there was that we were on the cusp of seeing another company be able to take things on and to be a part of that show. Historical, first of all. Second of all, the energy feeding through that crowd the whole night. To be a part of that would have been amazing. And even if it's not reffing, yeah, I will be happy till the day I die. But to even be like a grip or just a gopher or something working there, that would have been so cool. Just to be a part of that. And that's really kind of my big thing with it. It has less to do with the individual matches and more to do with the overall product that we're putting out there. And I think, the reason for that is, again, I don't want to be main character, which I know I'm not in the ring, but I'm always worried about like, would my presence detract from something if I'm not doing my thing? And like, no, they did fine. I couldn't have done it better. No notes.
That's a great answer. I can get behind that. I mean, something like that where where it's a first time event and just the energy that by itself, just a budding company on doing their first show, that energy alone is enough to draw anyone in. But the fact that they've become become competition now, become part of the big leagues, even though they may not be at their best right now, in my opinion, but they're still there. They're still a presence. That's really cool.
I did think of a match that would have been cool to step in and officiate, and I don't know that the ref necessarily would have fought too hard on it in hindsight. And I say this somewhat jokingly, but also somewhat seriously. To replace Earl Hebner during the Montreal Screwjob.
Oh.
And I say that because he was just doing his job. And that's different than, never mind, I'm not going to go down that path. But he was doing his job. He was there in a professional capacity. He did his thing. But also, he has never wanted for a booking the rest of his life. And part of that is because he's Earl Hebner. He's one of the GOATs for a reason. But at the same time, like every single time he's anywhere. So Earl, tell us about Montreal. Man will never look for work again.
No, that's very fair. I know they brought Tim White in, but not like an actual Hall of Fame induction. Do refs like Earl Hebner belong in the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely. Because, and again, this is speaking for others and not myself, probably, because main character. But yeah, because like we've stated here, a ref, even though we're supposed to be in the background, we are an integral part of the match. And a bad ref, can absolutely ruin things. If you had a bad ref during the Austin Hart double turn match, that match would not be seen as one of the best of all time. It wouldn't have been introduced to the WWE Hall of Fame as a match, as the first match introduced to the Hall of Fame, if that referee had screwed it up so bad. So yeah, absolutely, refs deserve to be inducted.
I love that answer.
And for that matter,
I do too.
All of the backstage people too. If somebody's been doing this job and helping to bring this product to light for forever, then yes, there needs to be a Hall of Fame for production staff. There needs to be a Hall of Fame for writers. And you don't need to make a big showy thing of it. Like we don't need a 7-hour award show all of the Oscars. But I should be able to go on to, for instance, WWE's Hall of Fame website and be like, hey, who was the top content producer in 2024? Why did they deserve that award? That's awesome.
I'll make
Right.
an argument even for someone like Jim Johnson and his music.
Right. 100%.
For sure. That's a guy that's well overlooked and needs his flowers now. I agree with you. We are talking with Jaina Pryde here on the Card Subject Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. Of course, we're powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Modeling, and colored by Ryan Ellison Tattoo. Jaina, what are you watching currently that you really like? What of the current product do you watch or look forward to watching?
This is gonna sound really bad, but back around the beginning of the year, I had some stuff change in my life that made me take a step away from wrestling. And when that happened, I had to completely remove myself from any and all wrestling. Even if I was to watch it on TV, I would start to build resentments because for reasons. And I've only, within the past 2 weeks, started watching wrestling again.
Okay.
And always when that happens, like I'm an AEW girl through and through. I'm going to be watching AEW. I'm going to be watching some TNA. I'm going to be watching some ROH. I'm going to be catching up on indie stuff. I've got my IWTV subscription. That's good background noise. But yeah, I'm not a fan of WWE, like in the least.
Who do you like?
Tony
in
Storm.
AEW?
I mean,
who do you?
Tony Storm is the best thing in professional wrestling right now, and I will fight anybody that says otherwise.
I won't disagree. I think it's definitely the best character AEW has ever done.
100%.
And she has totally killed it. I'm looking forward to the match with her and Mercedes, because the build's been really good.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you actually mentioned Dynamite 100, Rampage. No, not Rampage. Rampage is gone. Collision 100.
Dynamite 300,
and they
Collision
just did
100.
Dynamite 300.
Yep.
So it's been such a busy week with the holiday and travel this weekend for a show. Like I've got them on HBO Max ready to go, and I'm looking forward to firing those up and checking them out now. I think watching those anniversary shows is going to be a great way for me to be like, yep, I'm back. Let's go.
Jaina, I want to ask you, you talked about early in the year how you had to step away from wrestling. I don't want to peel the curtain back too far. I don't want to get too in depth with everything, but talk about what coming back was like for you.
It was, I didn't know what to expect. So just real briefly to anybody who's unaware, me being a trans person, the changes in the US, I now cannot safely travel by car throughout the country. So I've had borders put up around me as far as where I'm allowed to work safely. And that was hard for me after pouring everything I had and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into this for years. When I came back to it, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel because the last show that I did before I decided I needed to step away was hard because one of the things that happens in a wrestling locker room is you all have that camaraderie. And besides talking about what you're doing that night, you're spending a lot of time talking about where were you last week? Where are you going to be next week? What are you hoping to do this year? And I didn't have those conversations anymore. I wasn't able to have those conversations. So for me to be there, that when I said like I would watch wrestling and I would grow a resentment, that's why. Because I wasn't able to shoot for that anymore. Not safely. And so the first show back was a Fantastic League of Wrestling show in Chicago on May 31st. So it was actually on my birthday. That's how I said I wanted to spend my birthday this year, was getting back to a show. So a friend of mine, we drove down to Chicago for it. And I wanted to make a weekend of it because I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. I hope it's okay. but getting to work with Flo for that weekend, I knew that it was going to be a good experience because the people who run Flo, like I've got a lot of respect for them. We're friends. And that's not to say that bookers hire bad actors intentionally. If anything, every booker that I've ever worked with goes out of their way to make sure that they don't hire those people. But I also knew that this was going to be a family-friendly show. It was for a group of about 1,000 special needs individuals. And knowing the owners as I do, this was going to have the potential to be the safest locker room where I wasn't going to experience anything. Realistically, did I think I was going to experience any backlash? Because this was shortly after I came out publicly as trans also. I only did that at the beginning of the year. And to be able to step into it and go to a place where I could just focus on my fundamentals and be around like good people was a lot. And I actually went up to the folks at the end. John Bullard, he's one of the guys that owns it. And he was talking to me after the show and, saying how glad he was that I made it down. And I hugged him and I just started crying. And I was like, I didn't know how much I needed this back in my life. That said, I've got a couple rules with it now, so I don't overextend myself.
Right.
I've had to put up some barriers so that I can, have diverse. That's the word. We're not supposed to say that word in this country anymore. Interests. So being able to get back into it, but doing it more on my terms has been nice, unexpected, and kind of a pleasant surprise. Because really, if you would have asked me 4 months ago if I would ever be stepping into a ring again, my answer was I don't know. And that scared me because my found family is in the wrestling community. And honestly, the people that I meet here, even in wrestling, is why I keep coming back personally. Why do I do it? I always say it's because of representations, because I want to go out there and I want to put on a show. But what does Jaina get out of it? She gets that interaction. She gets those people. She gets her friends. She gets her family. And to be able to get that back, to answer your question, was it surpassed my expectations in every way.
I love that word. I love that word family because that's been my experience a majority of the time wherever I've been, whether it's been as a fan, as an announcer, as a podcast host. It's very rare that that community doesn't have that family aspect, at least where I'm sure there's always going to be somebody in every place you go that has that negative attitude. But for me, I haven't found that toxicity level wherever I've been, and that I love that because it's such a strong-willed community and such a tight-knit community in the wrestling world.
And there's a lot of trust that we have to have with each other too. You don't gain that level of trust generally with like the dude that you're down, clocking 40 hours with at the office. You're going to gain that level of trust with somebody that you're going in there and putting each of your lives on the line. And that's not hyperbole, right? Like there's a chance every single time a guy goes through that through that curtain, there could be an accident and they're not walking back through.
Right. Where does Jaina Pryde see herself 5 years?
In Tahiti. It's a magical place. No,
do they have wrestling in Tahiti? I don't know.
They will when I get there. No, it was one of those things, or I'm sorry, 5 years. It's kind of hard for me to say because I'm not even sure what the rest of this year looks like. I'm kind of rebuilding what wrestling looks like to me. and how it works in my life. One of the things that I've started talking to people about, my bookings, I'm not taking as many bookings. I am kind of taking a lot of that energy and financial investment, frankly, that I put towards that, and I've started putting it into trans activism work. So people who follow me on socials know that over the past 45 days or so, I've chosen to take that pivot and to use my platform to lift trans voices in addition to talking wrestling and just being the chaos gremlin that I am. So that's part of it. I want to keep growing that part of it where I can raise those voices. I want to keep working in the wrestling industry, and part of that also is if I'm no longer going to be trying to push for those top jobs, because the goal for me was always to work for AEW. It was always, I want to get a call from Tony Khan saying, Jaina, we want you to come in. We need a ref for an ROH show. We'll give you a tryout. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. But the reality of that is right now, I don't know that anybody is going to be hiring a trans person when they cannot safely travel to every state that that company does business in. So if that's the case, if I can't chase that dream, how do I use what I've amassed? And I've been in talks with some people about starting to do some seminars. And I'm thinking that, that might be a good way for me to kind of continue to be really active, but be more deliberate with how I'm doing it. And I've always really enjoyed when I'm at shows and people ask me to do some training. And when I had that opportunity to kind of help shape the next people. I didn't get any formal training as a referee. I never, went into a wrestling school and was told, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. Every bit of training that I ever got as far as being a referee was on the job training, learning under the learning tree of those who came before me that I had the privilege of being on those shows with. And I love being able to do that for the next gen coming up too. So hopefully, the TLD, the L, too long didn't listen, is me continuing to take these bookings, to continuing to have fun, continuing to help represent, not just women in wrestling, but also trans voices across all platforms, and to try and help give back to the wrestling communities so that we continue to see like just these quality refs come up.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I follow you closely. I have one of my best friends is transgendered. I have always steered her in your direction, especially at the beginning of the year when you came out. That was one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. It's inspiring for me and for everybody out there. I hope also feels the same way,
I hope so. Before I came out publicly, so I've been out like well over a decade now. But it was not something that I publicly advertised because I have what's known as passing privilege, which means that 9 out of 10 people that I run into are not going to know that I'm trans unless I tell them. And that made it safer for me to be traveling as a single woman across the Midwest in her car for thousands and thousands of miles. And then once things started changing this year, well, I'm sorry, let me go back. So part of that earlier was always offering representation to girls who were there. Because when I was coming up, we kind of talked about it. It was during the Attitude Era. And to go back and watch Attitude Era stuff as a woman, that's rough. That's rough sometimes. Like, I want to see wrestling. I don't want to see people wrestling in, turkey gravy in their bikinis. That's not wrestling. If I wanted to see that, I've got the internet.
Right.
Instead, I want to show these people that, hey, just because that's what other people grew up with, you can put on a heck of a show and it can be all girls. You can do that. You can do anything in this business. You don't have to pigeonhole into this Barbie mold that a lot of people were brought up to see. Now, as an out trans person, it's equally important for me to do that representation as well. Really to just kind of show people that it's okay to be trans. It may not seem like it. It might be and is scary as hell, but you can still succeed. And if I can do it, I'm nothing. I am absolutely nothing. And if I can do it, though, literally anybody can.
Amen. I don't know that there's much else that we can say following that, to be honest.
No, I didn't have a follow-up question. That's a mic drop moment right there. I don't have a follow-up question. So well said.
But we are getting really close to that hour mark, Jaina. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on, and I do hope you come back at some point so we can catch up with you, see where you're at down the road. I guess the last thing while we wrap things up, where can people find you if they want to see you reffing coming up in the next few weeks?
So next show that I have this month, July has always intentionally been a light month for me. I try to keep it clear so that I can spend some family time with my kiddo. But I did just get a show booked for the end of the month on the 31st with Under the Lights Entertainment. That'll be in near north central Wisconsin. I forget the exact place where it is right now. Got a whole bunch of dates coming up throughout the Midwest in August, so be on the lookout for those. And you can find all the ways to follow me, to chat along, to do all of the fun stuff, finding out where I'm going to be next by going to jainapryde.com. And if I can plug something for a moment,
by all means, go ahead.
Backed by popular demand are the trans and rainbow flag Jaina Pryde Be Brave t-shirts. These were something done by me at the beginning of the year as a fundraiser for the nonprofit Advocates for Trans Equality, a legal action group here in the United States. And I've had people reach out to me asking me to bring them back. So they are back up on my Pro Wrestling Tees store, and 100% of every penny that comes in after the cost of making these gets sent right to Advocates for Trans Equality. So I don't see a cent of this. But if you want to help with what a lot of us are going through right now, pick up a shirt, represent yourself, represent that you are an ally or a queer person, and help put some money into the pockets of those who are helping us.
Absolutely. Well, that I think is going to put a wrap on this episode. Jaina, like I said, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time and glad you were able to join us. We coming up for Card Subject to Change. Of course, we have our midweek show, The Kickout, coming up on Wednesday. Next week is the weekend from hell in the wrestling world because there is nobody out there who does not have a show. AEW, WWE, NXT, local promotions all across the board. Everybody has a show next weekend. And
indies all around us are having
Yes.
a show on July 12th. Everybody's having a show.
if you don't want to support the big dogs, WWE and AEW, definitely go support the independent scene. They put on a fantastic product no matter where you go. But for my co-host and tag team partner, Never Wrong, Nick Bull, I am the Wizard CZ. This has been the podcast by the fan for the fan, Card Subject to Change, powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, and colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo. We will see you right back here next week for another episode.
This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.